Hey, I'm Alex, this is Big Al Books, and today I'm going to be doing the Finally Fall book tag. This was created by Tall Tales, so I'll link her original video down below. But I gotta say, it's a strange time of year to be doing this tag, because even though it's technically fall, and the leaves are starting to change, and back to school's happened and everything, it's still like hot as hell in the part of Ontario where I'm living, and it's not supposed to be. So like today it was over 30 degrees Celsius, so when I see people doing this video, a lot of times they're in like cute sweaters and blankets and scarves, but that is not going to be happening here. It is so hot, I don't have air conditioning. As you can see, I'm like already sweating. So even though it really doesn't feel like fall, I'm going to give this tag a try anyway to get me into the spirit. So here we go. Question number 1. In fall, the air is crisp and clear. Name a book with a vivid setting. So for this one, I'm going to go with a book that I finished pretty recently, and that is Salvage the Bones by Jesmyn Ward. This is set in a small town in Mississippi. It's a coastal town on the Gulf of Mexico, and it's also the part of the world where Jesmyn Ward grew up herself. So not a place that you encounter often in fiction, but it's so great that Jesmyn Ward knows this part of the world so intimately, because there's a lot of authenticity when she writes about what life is like here. She knows about what the poverty that her characters are living through, kind of lack of opportunity, as well as what's like living in a rural environment. The majority of this book is set before Hurricane Katrina hits, so she's also great at conjuring up this atmospheric sense of dread. You can really feel the sweltering heat and the humidity and like the oppressiveness of the oncoming storm clouds. So this is a book that's very successful at capturing time and place. Question number 2, nature is beautiful, but also dying. Name a book that is beautifully written, but also deals with a heavy topic like loss or grief. I read a lot of depressing books, so there were a lot of titles I could have gone with for this question, but one that really sticks out in my mind is Through the Night by Stig Sauterbakken. He was a Norwegian author. This book has been translated into English, and this book is really bleak, so it's no surprise that it comes from the imagination of a Scandinavian. This book is about a dentist whose marriage completely falls apart, and then his son commits suicide. So he is totally this broken man just trying to piece his life back together. It's a really emotionally devastating novel, and another aspect of it that makes it even more depressing is that the author took his own life a few months after writing this book. So that makes it even more depressing because he was not in a good place writing this book, most likely, and he's probably someone who really knows what he's talking about when he's writing about grief and depression. So read at your own risk, but if you do like sad novels with some really raw and gorgeous prose, then I would recommend checking this one out. Here's a little bit of the first paragraph. The first chapter is called God Damn Fucking Shit. And the first paragraph goes a little bit like this. Grief comes in so many forms. It's like a light being turned on and off. It's on and it's unbearable. And then it goes off because it's unbearable, because it's not possible to have it on all the time. It fills you up and it drains you. 1,000 times a day I forgot that Ola Jacob was dead. 1,000 times a day I remembered it again. Both were unbearable. And on like that. So you see what I mean? This is like a really depressing book, but it's also a powerful read that has stuck with me years later. Question number 3, fall is back to school season. Share a nonfiction book that taught you something new. I've talked about this book a lot on my channel already, but it's so excellent. So here it is again. This is Clearing the Plains, Disease, Politics of Starvation, and the Loss of Aboriginal Life by James Dashak. So a lot of Canadians were having a conversation this summer about whether we should be removing statues of the first Prime Minister, Sir John A. Macdonald, kind of in response to the questions that people were asking in America about keeping statues of people from the Confederate Army. Should we be glorifying that version of the past? And a lot of people were saying that you can't take those statues down because that is erasing history. And I would argue that the people who are making that argument probably don't even know their history well enough to know why people want those statues down. A lot of Canadians think of Sir John A. Macdonald as this inspirational founding father who united the country and made way for the Canadian Pacific Railroad. But a book like this will teach you about the unsettling side to that narrative of progress basically how Sir Johnny MacDonald and his government used starvation and the withholding of food as a tactic to kick First Nations people off of their lands into reserves and to keep withholding food to keep them submissive on reserves. So it is a really awful history that we don't talk about enough. I learned so much reading this book, and if you are interested in getting the real lowdown on Canadian history, then I would recommend checking this one out too. Question number 4, in order to keep warm, it's good to spend some time with people we love. Name a fictional family, household, friend group that you'd like to be a part of. This one was a no-brainer. I would love to be a part of the squad from The Wind in the Willows, because if I was friends with these guys, that would probably mean that I too was an anthropomorphic woodland creature, which is ideal for me, but also because they are all so sweet and their friendship is so genuine and touching. So like, could you imagine having Mole as a friend and just getting to like cuddle with Mole? He's so sweet, I can't even think about it. And also, I feel like Mr. Toad would be a hilarious friend. He'd kind of annoy you most of the time, but since, you know, you and most of your other friends live a boring life, he gives you that little bit of drama and excitement so that you always have something to talk about. So I think this would be a perfect set of friends. Question number 5, the colorful leaves are piling up on the ground. Show us a pile of fall color spines. So these are all kind of some books that I'm hoping to read in the near future. Like most people, I associated orange and brown and red and yellow with fall. So the bottom 2 that I have here are 2 books by Clarice Lispector. I read her collection of short stories last year and they blew me away, so I've been wanting to return to her ever since. This is her first novel, Near to the Wild Heart, and another one by her, this is The Passion According to G.H. Also on my pile, I have Ceremony by Leslie Marmon Silko. I just read her book, Almanac of the Dead, and I picked this up right after because I need to read more of her stuff. I've got North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. I know Victober's coming up. Might be a good time to hit this one up. I've been meaning to read this one for a long time. I feel like this fall could be the right time. And the last book I have is Pinocchio. Check out this ridiculous copy by the New York Review of Books. I never thought that I wanted to read Pinocchio, but then I saw this cover and I thought I just have to have this in my life. Question number 6, fall is the perfect time for some storytelling by the fireside. Share a book wherein someone is telling a story. Easy pick. Gotta go with Wuthering Heights for this one. We've got 2 narrators. There's Mr. Lockwood, who's telling the reader about that time that he rented this house called Thrushcross Grange. Things got a little weird. He spent a night at his landlord's place and saw a ghost, so that's a pretty good story. But also, then this housekeeper starts telling him this epic story about 2 families and the 2 properties and all the crazy drama that's gone down, and that housekeeper is of course Nellie. And I love to think that this is like a respected classic novel that is really just like a gossip fest. You know, this is this gossipy housekeeper that is telling a complete stranger all of these dramatic happenings. So I think that makes for a really engaging book, and I'm so glad that you couldn't keep your mouth shut, Nellie, because it is one hell of a story. Question number 7, the nights are getting dark. Share a dark, creepy read. For this one, I'm going to go with Sputnik Sweetheart by Haruki Murakami. So there is an incident in like the middle of this book that still weirds me out when I think about it. This woman gets trapped on a Ferris wheel, and she's sitting there, and she realizes that she can see into her apartment. Except the weird thing is that she sees herself in her apartment, but she's also still herself on the Ferris wheel, and then there's a man in the apartment, and then bad things are happening to her, and she's like watching it happen. So it is this very strange episode, very creepy. I was reading this on a Greyhound bus, and it was nighttime, so I had like the only light going on in the Greyhound bus. It was completely dark aside from that, so totally creeped me out. Very short book to get through, very unsettling. Question number 8, the days are getting colder. Name a short, heartwarming read that could warm up somebody's cold and rainy day. I've already mentioned The Wind in the Willows in this video, and that would be an excellent choice, but I'm also going to talk about Texts from Jane Eyre by Mallory Ortberg, who used to be the editor over at The Toast. So this is just a hilarious book. It's all about these imagined conversations between different literary figures. So if you're a bookish nerd, then there's a lot that you can probably find entertaining about this collection. As you can see, it's kind of like written like text messages, so it's a quick book to fly through when you need a pick-me-up. We have characters like Hamlet and Sherlock Holmes and Great Gatsby, all sorts of different people in here. My favorite one is the Lorax. Here's a little excerpt from that. The Lorax types in all caps, by the way. He says, "Do you have any idea how many tampons the average woman uses in a year? I'm in class right now. I can't talk about tampons. Tampons can't ever talk. They don't have mouths. That's why I speak for them. Okay. Enough tampons to make a truffle tree. That's how many. Have you considered the Diva Cup?" That's really personal, Lorax. So like random conversations like that, pretty funny and worth a look at if you need a little pick-me-up. Question number 9. Fall returns every year. Name an old favorite you'd like to return to soon. For me, I was thinking of His Dark Materials series by Philip Pullman. Obviously, we got the Book of Dust coming out in a few weeks where he's kind of returning to the universe of the series. And I haven't read these series in like a really long time, but I totally loved them when I was younger. But it's kind of one of the ones that's like scary going back to, because like, is it going to live up to my memories of the series? I don't know. I've been kind of hesitating about doing it, but just a few days ago, I saw Jen Campbell's video on this series, and it really did get me thinking about them again, getting me missing these books, the complexity within them. So I think that I'm going to try to find the time to revisit these works, and hopefully it goes as well as I hope it is going to. Question number 10. Fall is the perfect time for cozy reading nights. Share your favorite cozy reading accessories. I'm pretty basic, like most people. Like, give me a blanket, give me some candles, give me some tea. I've really been enjoying to drink London Fogs. I just got the little frother so I can froth my milk up at home. I've been enjoying that. And my favorite mug to drink out of these days is this little chick mug. Probably more spring themed, but I'm not going to give him up depending on the season. It looks really great. We got the little foam coming out of his head. So I'm quite attached to this guy. Really makes my reading night just like that much better. So that's it for the Finally Fall book tag. I was about to say, I hope that it starts feeling like fall here soon, but I actually don't, because I'm somewhat of a reptile and I am thriving in this heat, and I hope it never ends and that I never have to get out my sweaters and scarves. But anyway, that's what I have to say about fall. Let me know what you're going to be reading this fall, and thank you for watching.